Welcome back to I Am Her, Your Voices, and we're having a conversation with Sharon Halai, who is taking us through this conversation and her stories around feminism and how gender defines our culture and the things we do as men and women. So thank you, Sharon, for being with us. Sharon is going to take us through a couple of stories of things that have happened to her, and then we'll move the conversation from there. So tell us about your experiences around this, around our culture, things that have actually happened to you.
Well, I will give examples of certain things that I have come across, and I think most people have generally, really, if you critically look at things. And probably one of them is very recent. A cousin of mine who's male, not that this should really give us any background in terms of how we judge the situation, but he's a male cousin of mine, and he posted a certain post from a female. And this female, it was a repost, and this female was basically saying, she was talking about saving yourself for marriage in terms of intimacy. And she kept talking about, you can't expect sex to be the only thing you bring to the table in any relationship, whether it's a marriage or it's a courtship or a dating situation. That, sex is not enough to keep the man in the marriage, and you need to be smarter than that. You need to be intelligent. You need to offer something more. And as much as I vouch for purity before and even after marriage, actually purity goes beyond marriage, really, but in terms of keeping yourself until you get that one person you commit to, in terms of intimacy, I thought that it was lopsided in the sense that I have not seen a post where we talk about keeping the woman in the marriage. How come it has to be the woman always thinking of reinventing herself and being intelligent and bringing newness to the marriage, yet we never think about the same thing to the man? So I feel like there's so much expectation that is placed on the female simply because she's the female, instead of placing it on both parties. It's not like he married you as a favor, which ideally is the premise here, right? That it's a prize you've been given. My gosh, you're married.
You have to
hallelujah, right? You need to ensure that you earn this prize and you keep this prize because you know the value of it, instead of putting the same thing for the male. So the male comes into this thinking that he's done you a favor for marrying you. Well, I don't think that should be the case. And speaking of marriage, I recently went out to a business trip, if I may call it that, and we were sharing a house. I had roommates who were my workmates, and we were both male and female. And I volunteered to cook one evening, not because female, but because I thought it would be nice, and I honestly enjoy cooking. So in case you thought feminists don't cook, because we boycott cook, no, not quite. That we only eat out. No, not quite. I actually do enjoy cooking. So I volunteered to cook, and after I cooked, everyone really appreciated my food. And unfortunately, it did not just stop at appreciating the food. It ended up to be, now you're ripe for marriage, tumekupea tick. You should ready. Now, you can go ahead with our blessings. And I was thinking, so what does it mean then for the woman? Or if I was not able to cook, then I shouldn't be married? Because married is cook school? I don't know. It just...
Yes.
I really wanted to understand where this was coming from. And, the sad thing, or I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, that I'm looking back and I'm thinking, a year ago, if the same thing would have happened, I would have clapped, I would have given myself a tap on the back, because oh my gosh, I'm ready for marriage, And or if I saw the post on Facebook, probably I'd like it and reshare, because I'm thinking, you should all be pure and and all these things. But when I'm looking at the premise of these things, I realize that it does not come from a place of liberation, and it doesn't come from a place that esteems the woman. So I thought, wow, and these things keep happening every other day, and you barely get to see it.
I think it's the subtleness. It's such a subtle thing when it seems like praise, like, oh my God, like this is such an excellent meal. Then it comes with, oh, now you're ready for marriage.
Then you're like,
and we do it without thinking about it, which means it's informed by a number of things that we believe about what marriage should or should not be like. And I think that's the whole point of having this conversation, how these things slip in between life and you don't even notice that it's, and I like that you've said that it's not coming from a place of liberation for the woman or even for the man. Really, it's suppression, it's oppression, it's almost demeaning. And I say this to my friends almost like a joke, that if anyone wanted to marry me for being able to cook or wash, they should have married me when I was 9. I mean, I started doing all these things when I was like 9.
You were ripe for marriage.
I was ripe. I was ready. I was so ready because I did all these things. And I don't think they necessarily made me mature enough emotionally or psychologically to be in a marriage. So when you talk about that kind of expectation, then I hear you when we say that it goes beyond just the thing that I can do or can't do for you in a marriage. What about the emotional connection that comes with it? What about, and the emotional expectation as well? Like, I mean, half of us are not even ready to be in a marriage, who are in marriages, half of the people, because of all the things that I think you should have done to yourself in terms of, internal work and just dealing with your issues before you get there. And so before we digress to marriage, coming back to this whole conversation on feminism and the equality of the genders, if you would add your voice to just that one thing that you think would be the most important thing to say at this time in our country, with people our age, ordinary people doing ordinary things, what's that one thing that you think you would add to this conversation?
Probably it might not be, a maiden thing that, something that, it's not a novelty really, the premise of it or the very basic idea of it. But I'm thinking, the one thing that I've thought about is I wouldn't want any man or any woman to be born, man or woman, baby girl or baby boy, to be born into the world and you automatically fit into a certain mold, or you fit into a certain role. I would rather that people are born and they're allowed to be free to grow to their fullest potential, no matter what gender you are, really. Because you see, feminism, I believe, is not about making the woman equal to the man, really. It's not about making the woman superior to the man. It's also because there are situations where certain things are expected of men that ideally shouldn't be. For example, the same trip that I'm talking about, we had a situation where we needed to carry our luggage to a vehicle, and we got to a point where one of the females, oh my gosh, it sounds funny calling them females, but I was with certain ladies and they were like, wherever men are around, I don't need to lift a finger. They can carry all these things. They should go downstairs and come back for the rest, and then go down and then come back for the rest. Well, ideally, if we were thinking, okay, we need to move these things, which is the objective, move these items to the vehicle, we would all do it, because that's the end game. If I do not have the same strength as you would, I will carry the lighter items. Why should he carry the heavy items and come back for the lighter items and come back for more items simply because he's the man? And so, he's a man and they were born ragged. I had that for the first time. So I thought, wow.
Oh my God.
So really, I would want both genders to be able to be free to grow to their fullest potential. If you're born a baby boy, you're allowed to love pink. If you're born a baby girl, you're allowed to play with, I don't know, construction items, cars, and so I think that is what I would add to it. Let everyone not be fit into a certain road that you cannot digress from, because that's not how we do things.
Thank you very much for your insight. That's really, I think that's really, really, really important. And you can be part of this conversation as well by leaving a comment down below, by sharing your voice, sharing your ideas, your perspective to this story, a story that has happened, or anything that you would like to add to this conversation. And I am still hanging out with Sharon in our next video that will come next week. Remember to subscribe. It's fun when girls hang out. This is I Am Her, and I'm your host Agnes Olo. I'll see you next week.